I'm a gay man with lesbian parents, and I am a product of their civil rights achievement, and I was born directly into our movement. Alongside their marching in the streets, I was their protest. I was their assertion that they could be parents just like anybody else, and they were very brave. I mean, they had a child together before they could have an auto insurance policy together, right? They dared to go to church, and this was in 6th Ward at Resurrection, where at that time, neighbors would sit in their front porch with a rifle, and they would dare any dyke or faggot to step on their lawn just so that they could shoot, right? They bought a house together and dared to live openly and out in their community as gay women. They took out the trash, they mowed the yard, they had a child, and they did all of these things that straight people claimed were only for themselves. But years prior to all of this, they met under the disco ball at the first iteration of Riches, dancing to Donna Summer's latest hit, This Time I Know It's For Real. And an odd match, there met this fiery Latina, Houston-born, poverty-raised, Miss Viola runner-up 3 years in a row. I hear there was some controversy around that. And an OG girl from a small town of about 450 people, just spitting distance from Kansas, who just moved down to the big gay mecca of the South. And there began their story, right? At the hottest club, dancing to the hottest track on a hot Houston summer night in the blue, blazing heat of our 1980s revolution. Gayness was never a big deal in our home for very obvious reasons. And in fact, it was such a small issue, we rarely brought it up. I mean, it was constantly around us. I mean, I had gay parents, and we belonged to this community of local lesbians. But as far as I was concerned, I simply had parents who were gay, who had a lot of gay friends, who wore cargo shorts and drove Subarus and all of those things. And they touted themselves as being the June and Ward Cleaver of the gay community. And if you spend any time with them, it's really easy to figure out which one is June and which one is Ward. But this was our normal, and it was our game, proving to the world that we were just another normal family in hopes of being legally acknowledged as one. Well, when I was 14, I officially came out of the closet, another gay in the Klan, and was pleased to find that the world didn't end. And I was, of course, highly dramatic about the whole thing, to no one's surprise. And I guess you could assume at this juncture that I began to find my place in our community. But as I grew up and sought individuality and autonomy as a young gay man, I found myself walking in their shadow and treading their footsteps. I mean, everywhere I go, whether it was on Pacific Street here in Houston or Northeast 39th in Oklahoma City, which was the closest neighborhood to the University of Oklahoma, where I spent 3.5 years behind enemy lines, I'd see some tableau remembered from my parents' photo albums, and I could picture my mom sitting right at the end of the bar. Or I'd hear a song and think of some story I was told. Or I'd see like a poster on the wall, a little faded, that was there for them and lasted into my time. And then, of course, someone would look over and recognize me as their son. So to find my own narrative and place in this world, I felt that I had to reshape my identity. I mean, I was gay, but I was a lot of other things too, and I decided to let those other facets take focus. And I moved across the country. 1,010 miles away from this theater on an island in the middle of a river in southeastern Minnesota is an artsy enclave of about 25,000 people. Winona was my new home, on and off. And I was there working at the Great River Shakespeare Festival. 35 miles from the closest gay bar, across state lines in the bustling metropolis of La Crosse, 50,000 people, and 2.5 hours downriver from the gay district in Minneapolis. And for the bulk of my 3 years there, this never presented itself as a difficulty. I was work obsessed, and I identified far more as an artist than I did as gay. I never went to a pride festival. I never crossed the river to go to that bar. And I didn't feel any reason to. Homosexuality became such an infinitesimal part of my life that I paid it little attention. And seeing as I was one of the 6 gay people in that town, including my coworkers at a theater company, I wasn't doing any dating either. And I missed the gay world that I left behind, but not exactly knowing where I'd fit, I didn't feel much reason to go back. I mean, I'd seen every aspect of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, and it kind of felt nice to be away. Like many of you, I woke up on June 12th of last year, late, rolled over to turn off my alarm on my phone and opened up Facebook, and I was flooded with notifications, and I'm feeling very grand. But I grew rapidly concerned when I saw that the bulk of them were friends and colleagues marking themselves as safe in Orlando. Learning details throughout the day just left me numb. I mean, never before had I experienced seeing a rolling screen of faces that looked like mine and hearing names that sounded like mine, all dead, because they went to some place like the ones I used to frequent and danced to the music that I grew up with. The worst shooting in American history, and yet life in Winona just seemed to go on, business as usual. I mean, people were stunned, but they weren't affected. I felt very alone. I felt very gay and very, very alone. While my mothers were at vigils, I was at the office. While the gay community that I grew up with was responding and communing, I was trapped in the middle of a river, surrounded by well-meaning straight people who were heartbroken. I mean, nobody understood what I was going through, what any of us were going through. And on a certain level, I didn't either. There was this part of me that I had compressed and compartmentalized, and all of a sudden, it was all consuming. It was inescapably who I was, and it came first. Days later, I heard about the bomb threats on the Houston Pride Parade. And I received a phone call from my mother, Ward, to be specific. Son, I'm gonna be at that parade. I love you. This is how we fight back. My isolation felt like betrayal, and I had to find another gay person to talk to. And not even talk to, but just to look in their eyes and recognize that mutual grief and simply be together. I needed the community that I ran away from, and to find some semblance of it, I hopped in my car and headed to La Crosse. Now this was a little nerve-wracking because no one would go with me. My straight friends assumed that I was looking for a little action and didn't feel up to it. So I ventured to this new place in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, by myself. Players Nightclub. It was a one-stop shop gay bar that featured a little bit of everything, starting with the leather-clad bears guarding the door, to the daddies at the pool table, the lesbians playing shuffleboard because they have that there. There were twinks batting their eyes at the bar, and the drag queens running half-dressed with a wig in hand out from backstage to the one bathroom in the bar. It was a packed night there, with fewer people there than are here right now. And they'd all come from farms and smaller towns in the region for the same reason that I did. And for the first time in all of those years up there, I fully felt myself. I felt free to be all of who I was, and I felt like I was somewhere that I belonged. I didn't have to try to be there. I just simply was. And for the first time, I was a gay man before I was anything else. I was a gay man before I was the son of gay women. And all of my priorities shifted. After that night, I returned to Players every other weekend just for that feeling, and started learning about the work being done there for that community, and began to find ways to help. My artistic work actually started taking a backseat in my heart as my passion for my people swelled. I also knew that it was time to come home. There was work to be done in this community, and it was time to grab the baton from my parents. See, that was the transition I missed. It was my picking up their torch and fighting in their stead. And for the first time, my story as a gay man belonged first and only to me. And Houston felt different when I returned, or maybe it was just me. But shortly after I moved back last August, I called a couple of friends and wanted to go celebrate being in town and explain everything I was going through. And they were in and told me about this hot new club that had just reopened that we had to check out. riches. Same place I'd heard about my entire life. And we went and we danced, and this is true. Out there on that same dance floor from 30 years ago, buried in the DJ's track, I'll be damned if I didn't hear, what would I have to do, right, to get you? Nope, not gonna happen to another. It was kismet. My story was starting to the same track on a hot Houston summer night at the hottest club in the blue blazing heat of our 21st century uprising. Thank you.